Persian Gulf, 3:47 in the morning. Complete darkness everywhere. Calm waters. No moon in the sky. One American aircraft carrier sitting in the water. USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. 100,000 tons of steel. Nuclear-powered. 5,000 American sailors on board sleeping, working, living. Then suddenly, 12 Iranian speedboats emerged from the darkness. Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy. Each boat armed with C-704 anti-ship missiles, racing at 60 knot speed, closing fast on the American carrier. This was a swarm attack, coordinated assault from multiple directions. The plan was simple: overwhelm the carrier's defenses, sink American pride, close the Strait of Hormuz, start a war. Tehran's plan was to destroy the carrier, kill thousands of Americans, prove to the world that Iran controls the Persian Gulf. But Iran made 5 catastrophic mistakes that night. First mistake, USS Eisenhower wasn't alone out there. Second mistake, U.S. Navy SEALs were already underwater in the area, watching everything. Third mistake, 6 F-35C Lightning stealth fighters were circling overhead, completely invisible to Iranian radar. Fourth mistake, an attack submarine called USS Florida was tracking every single Iranian boat for the past 3 hours. Fifth and final mistake, attacking an American aircraft carrier means immediate destruction of your entire naval capability. It took 8 minutes. 12 Iranian boats destroyed. 6 coastal military bases eliminated. 0 American casualties. This is that story. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway between the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman. It's only 21 miles wide at the narrowest point. Every single day, 21% of the world's petroleum passes through this tiny strait. It's the most strategically important waterway on planet Earth. The U.S. Navy patrols this area constantly. They're protecting commercial shipping, defending allies, maintaining freedom of navigation. It's a standard presence mission they've been doing for decades without incident. USS Dwight D. Eisenhower is a Nimitz-class supercarrier. It's among the most powerful warships ever built by human beings. The ship has Aegis combat systems, spy, 6 radar that can track hundreds of targets simultaneously, Sea Sparrow missiles for defense, rolling airframe missiles, phalanx close-in weapon systems. Everything on this ship is designed for multi-threat environments where attacks come from every direction at once. The carrier had its full air wing embarked that night. 48 F/A, 18 Super Hornet fighters, 6 F-35C Lightning II stealth fighters that are invisible to radar, for E-2D Hawkeye early warning aircraft with massive radar dishes, 80A 18G Growler electronic warfare jets that can jam enemy systems. Total of 90 aircraft sitting on that carrier ready to launch at any moment. At 10 o'clock the previous night, USS Eisenhower departed from its patrol station near UAE waters. The mission orders were simple: freedom of navigation, transit through Strait of Hormuz, show American presence, monitor Iranian activities. Standard operation they'd done hundreds of times before without any problems. Captain Michael Rodriguez was Eisenhower's commanding officer. Before the transit started, he briefed his crew about the mission. He told them that intelligence reports were showing increased Iranian Revolutionary Guard activity that week. They'd been conducting speedboat drills along the coast. The Eisenhower would be transiting through international waters, completely legal, but everyone needed to stay alert because Tehran had been getting more aggressive lately. At 2 in the morning, Eisenhower entered the Strait of Hormuz, international waters, legal transit corridor. The carrier was sailing at 20 knots, not particularly fast, but steady. Combat air patrol was overhead. 2 F-35C stealth fighters were circling at 25,000 feet, completely invisible to any Iranian radar systems watching the area. At 2:30 in the morning, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy headquarters in Bandar Abbas received an alert. An American aircraft carrier was entering the strait. The Iranian commanders saw this as their opportunity. They decided to activate their swarm attack plan. They ordered all speedboat units to prepare for immediate action. Iranian Admiral Hassan Rahimi personally ordered the immediate mobilization of all available forces. He told the commanders that this is what they'd been training for. The American carrier was vulnerable in the narrow waters of the strait. They would launch a coordinated swarm attack, using multiple small fast boats. The Americans couldn't possibly defend against all of them at once. They would sink that carrier and show the entire world that Iran controls these waters. 12 Iranian speedboats were activated from their positions spread across 4 different hidden coastal locations. At Qeshm Island Base, 3 speedboats were prepared. Each boat was 15 meters long with twin diesel engines that could push them to 60-knot maximum speed. Each boat had a crew of 5 Revolutionary Guards. They were armed with 2 C-704 anti-ship missiles per boat. These missiles had a range of 35 kilometers and carried 130-kilogram warheads, specifically designed to cripple warships. At Bandar Abbas Naval Station, 4 more speedboats were readied with the same configuration. These boats had additional equipment, including 107mm rocket launchers loaded with unguided rockets for saturation fire attacks. At Larak Island Position, 3 speedboats were armed with C-704 missiles plus heavy machine gun mounts for close-range combat. At Hormuz Island Base, 2 speedboats were equipped with torpedoes in addition to their anti-ship missiles. The total firepower being prepared was staggering. 24 C-704 anti-ship missiles, 16 unguided rockets, 4 torpedoes, 12 heavy machine guns. All of this concentrated on destroying 1 American carrier. The Iranian tactical plan had 3 phases. Phase 1. All speedboats would approach from 4 different directions simultaneously, so the carrier couldn't defend all vectors at once. Phase 2. The boats would close the 20-kilometer range and launch all missiles together in an overwhelming barrage. Phase 3. Any surviving boats would press the attack with rockets and torpedoes to finish off the carrier. Admiral Rahimi was extremely confident in this plan. He believed the American carrier was too big and too slow. It couldn't maneuver effectively in the narrow strait. The Iranian boats were small, fast, and presented many different targets. American defenses were designed for aircraft and missiles, not speedboat swarms. He genuinely believed they would succeed. At 3:30 in the morning, all 12 speedboats departed their bases. They were running completely dark with no lights and no radio communications. Complete radio silence. Stealthy approach so the Americans wouldn't detect them coming. At 3:35 in the morning, the boats formed their attack formation, 3 groups of 4 boats each. They were approaching from the north, east, and south. The timing was coordinated perfectly. All boats would reach firing range simultaneously at exactly 3:47 in the morning. The Iranian boat commanders received their final orders over encrypted communications. Maintain complete radio silence until weapons release. Close to 20 kilometers range. Launch all missiles on command. After missile launch, press the attack with all remaining weapons. Destroy that carrier. For the Islamic Republic, the crews were ready. They believed they were about to make history. But what the Iranians didn't know was that the Americans had been watching everything from the very beginning. At 3:15 in the morning, a full 32 minutes before the Iranian attack will begin, USS Florida attack submarine detected unusual acoustic signatures in the water. The submarine was patrolling about 15 kilometers away from the Eisenhower. USS Florida was a Virginia-class fast attack submarine, the most advanced submarine in the entire U.S. Navy. Its sonar systems heard diesel engines starting up at 4 different Iranian coastal bases, all at the same time. USS Florida's captain, Commander James Patterson, immediately alerted the carrier about what he was hearing. He radioed Eisenhower and told them he was detecting multiple diesel engine starts at known Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy bases. He had a count of 12 small vessels departing. He was tracking all contacts with his sonar. He warned that a possible swarm attack was developing. Captain Rodriguez on the Eisenhower didn't hesitate for even a second. He immediately sounded general quarters. All hands to battle stations. This was not a drill. Iranian speedboats might be maneuvering for an attack. He ordered all defensive systems activated. He wanted alert fighters launched immediately. Everyone needed to prepare for surface engagement. Within just 90 seconds, all 5,000 sailors were at their battle stations throughout the massive carrier. The carrier's Aegis combat systems were powered up to full capacity. The SBY-6 radar began scanning the entire area, tracking everything within 400 kilometers in every direction. Sparrow missile systems were armed and ready. Rolling airframe missile launchers were prepared to fire. 3 phalanx close-in weapon system guns were activated. These were the last line of defense. 20mm Gatling guns that could fire 4,500 rounds per minute to shoot down anything that got through the other defenses. At 3:18 in the morning, 4 additional F-35C Lightning II stealth fighters were launched from Eisenhower's flight deck. That brought the total to 6 F-35s airborne over the area. All of them were completely invisible to Iranian radar. Their thermal signatures were suppressed. They were flying at 30,000 feet, watching everything below. Each F-35C was armed with 8 GBU-39 small-diameter bombs, precision weapons that could hit targets with incredible accuracy, plus 4 AM, 1 20-AMRAAM air-to-air missile for air defense if needed. At 3:20 in the morning, 12 F/A 18 Super Hornet fighters launched from the carrier deck. This was a massive expansion of the combat air patrol. Each Super Hornet was armed with 4 AGM, 154 JSOW glide bombs, and 2 HARM anti-radiation missiles that could home in on enemy radar systems. At 3:25 in the morning, 2 MH-60S Seahawk helicopters launched for search and rescue standby in case anyone went in the water. 2 more MH-60R helicopters, equipped with Hellfire missiles and torpedoes, also launched to provide anti-surface capability against small boats. At 3:30 in the morning, 8 U.S. Navy SEALs from SEAL Team 3, who were already deployed on a completely separate mission about 40 kilometers away, received a flash alert. Iranian speedboat attack was imminent on the Eisenhower. They needed to redeploy immediately for an interdiction mission. The SEALs quickly boarded 2 high-speed special operations craft. These were Mark V special operations boats capable of 50 knot speed. They were armed with miniguns and grenade launchers. The SEALs began racing at maximum speed toward the Iranian boat positions. At 3:35 in the morning, USS Florida maneuvered into the perfect firing position underwater. All 12 Iranian speedboats were being tracked on sonar. The submarine's torpedo tubes were flooded and ready. Mark 48 torpedoes were loaded and armed. Commander Patterson was just waiting for authorization to fire. At 3:40 in the morning, 2 EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft activated their jamming systems at full power. Iranian coastal radar stations were immediately blinded. Surface-to-air missile systems became unable to acquire targets. Communications were disrupted across the entire Iranian coastal defense network. At 3:45 in the morning, all American forces were perfectly positioned. 6 F-35 stealth fighters were overhead, completely invisible. 12 F/A 18 Super Hornets were circling the area, ready to strike. 4 helicopters were airborne and ready. 8 Navy SEALs were racing toward the target area. 1 submarine was tracking every Iranian boat. The carrier's defenses were fully armed and ready. The Iranian speedboats had absolutely no idea they were sailing directly into a perfect ambush. Everything they were doing was being watched and tracked. At 3:46 in the morning, the Iranian boats reached 25-kilometer range from the carrier. The boat commanders began preparing their weapon systems. They radioed to each other that they had 2 minutes to firing range. Everyone needed to prepare missiles, armed torpedoes. This was it. This was the moment they trained for. At 3:47 in the morning, the first Iranian speedboat activated its targeting radar to lock onto the American carrier. Immediately, within a fraction of a second, Eisenhower's electronic warfare systems detected that radar emission. The ship's computer automatically identified it as an Iranian fire control radar. Threat classification came back as imminent attack. Captain Rodriguez immediately authorized offensive response. He gave the order for weapons free. Engage all hostile vessels. Eliminate all threats. Protect the ship. The 8-minute war had just begun. At 3:47 and 15 seconds in the morning, the first Iranian speedboat launched its C-704 anti-ship missile. The missile whooshed off the launcher and accelerated toward the carrier. It was 35 kilometers away with a flight time of about 90 seconds. At 3:47 and 20 seconds, USS Eisenhower's Sea Sparrow missile system fired automatically, a rolling airframe missile launched from the carrier, infrared guided, chasing down that Iranian missile. At 3:47 and 25 seconds, the second and third Iranian boats fired their missiles. Now, there were 3 missiles inbound toward the carrier. At 3:47 and 30 seconds, the first intercept happened. The Sea Sparrow missile destroyed the Iranian missile at 20 kilometers range. A bright explosion lit up the dark sky. Burning debris fell into the Black Ocean below. At 3:47 and 35 seconds, 3 more Iranian boats fired their missiles. The count was now up to 6 missiles inbound total toward the carrier. At 3:47 and 40 seconds, USS Eisenhower launched 4 more Sea Sparrow missiles. Rolling airframe missiles were firing continuously now, one after another, chasing down every threat. But Captain Rodriguez knew that the missiles were just the first wave of the attack. He gave the order to launch the airstrike, destroy those boats before they could fire everything they had. At 3:47 and 45 seconds, 6 F-35C Lightning stealth fighters dove down from 30,000 feet. It was an invisible approach. The Iranian boats couldn't see them coming on any radar. The targeting computers locked onto the Iranian speedboats below. At 3:48 exactly, the first F-35 dropped 2 GBU-39 precision-guided bombs. These were 250-pound warheads falling toward the northern group of Iranian boats. At 3:48 and 5 seconds, direct hit on the first target. The first Iranian speedboat was completely obliterated in a massive explosion. The fuel tanks erupted. The entire boat disintegrated into pieces. All 5 crew members were killed instantly. At 3:48 and 10 seconds, the second Iranian boat was destroyed. An F-35 bomb hit directly in the middle of the boat. The speedboat broke completely in half and sank in just 15 seconds. At 3:48 and 15 seconds, all 6 Iranian missiles that had been fired were intercepted. The Sea Sparrow and rolling airframe missile systems were performing flawlessly. 0 missiles reached the carrier. At 3:48 and 20 seconds, the Iranian boat commanders started panicking on their radios. They were screaming that they were under air attack. They couldn't understand where the aircraft were coming from. They couldn't see anything on their radar screens. The F-35 stealth fighters were completely invisible. The stealth technology was working perfectly exactly as designed. At 3:48 and 30 seconds, the third and fourth Iranian speedboats were destroyed. F-35 precision bombs devastated both vessels in massive fireballs. 8 more Iranian sailors were killed in the explosions. At 3:48 and 45 seconds, the eastern group of 4 Iranian boats tried desperately to scatter. They broke formation and went into emergency evasion maneuvers. Maximum speed in different directions. Just desperate attempts at survival. But USS Florida Submarine was waiting for exactly this moment. At 3:49 exactly, the submarine fired 4 Mark 48 torpedoes. 1 torpedo was assigned to each boat. These were computer-guided weapons traveling at 55 knots underwater speed with acoustic homing that would track the boat engines. At 3:49 and 40 seconds, the first torpedo impacted its target. The Iranian speedboat exploded from the underwater detonation. The hull completely shattered. The boat was actually lifted out of the water by the explosion and then fell back down destroyed. At 3:49 and 45 seconds, the second torpedo hit its target. Another boat completely destroyed. The crew never had any chance to survive. At 3:49 and 50 seconds, the third and fourth torpedoes struck their targets almost simultaneously. 4 Iranian boats were eliminated in just 50 seconds of submarine warfare. The Iranian attack force had now lost 8 boats destroyed. Only 4 boats were still operational. Already more than 40 Iranian sailors were dead in the water. At 3:50 exactly, the southern group of 3 remaining Iranian boats launched a desperate final attack. They fired all their remaining missiles. 6 C-704 missiles launched. They also fired their unguided rockets. Everything they had left. At 3:50 and 5 seconds, USS Eisenhower's phalanx close-in weapon systems activated. Three 20mm Gatling guns began firing. The distinctive BRRRD sound echoed across the water. Walls of lead were filling the sky between the carrier and the incoming missiles. At 3:50 and 15 seconds, the first Iranian missile was shredded by cannon fire. Pieces fell into the ocean. The second missile was destroyed. Then the third, fourth, and fifth missiles were all intercepted by the wall of bullets. At 3:50 and 20 seconds, the sixth and final missile came the closest to the carrier. It got within 5 kilometers of the ship. One final rolling airframe missile was launched to intercept it. At 3:50 and 25 seconds, the last Iranian missile was destroyed just 2 kilometers from the ship. It was close, but it was still intercepted before it could hit anything. 0 missiles hit the carrier. The defense was absolutely perfect. Not a single weapon got through. At 3:50 and 30 seconds, 2 F/A 18 Super Hornet fighters engaged the 3 remaining Iranian boats. They released AGM-154 JSOW glide bombs. At 3:50 and 45 seconds, 3 more Iranian speedboats were destroyed by precision bombs. Massive explosions obliterated the vessels. At 3:51 exactly, the final Iranian speedboat, the last survivor of the entire attack force, attempted to escape. It was running at maximum speed back toward the Iranian coast trying to survive. At 3:51 and 15 seconds, an MH-60R helicopter engaged a fleeing boat. It fired one AGM-114 Hellfire missile. At 3:51 and 25 seconds, direct hit. The last Iranian speedboat exploded and sank immediately. There were no survivors. At 3:51 and 30 seconds, all 12 Iranian attack boats had been eliminated. The total time from the very first shot fired to the last boat destroyed was exactly 4 minutes and 15 seconds. The Iranian swarm attack was a complete and total failure. All boats were destroyed. An estimated 60 Iranian sailors were killed. American losses were exactly 0, not even a scratch on the carrier. All defensive systems had performed perfectly beyond anyone's expectations. But the Americans weren't finished yet, not even close. At 3:52 in the morning, while Iranian boats were still burning and sinking in the Persian Gulf, Captain Rodriguez received a flash message directly from U.S. Central Command headquarters. The message said Eisenhower was now authorized to conduct immediate retaliatory strikes against Iranian coastal military installations that had supported the attack. The orders were to eliminate Iran's capability to conduct any future attacks like this. Weapons free, full authorization. Admiral Thomas Harper was the carrier strike group commander. He didn't hesitate at all. He immediately gave orders to launch the full strike package. Target every Iranian naval base that was involved. Destroy all their speedboat facilities. Eliminate their command centers. Show them exactly what happens when you attack American ships. At 3:53 in the morning, 12 F/A 18 Super Hornet fighters were already airborne and armed, ready to go. 6 more launched from a carrier deck to join them. The total strike package being assembled was massive. 18 F/A 18 Super Hornets, 6 F-35C stealth fighters providing targeting support, 4 EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft for jamming enemy systems, a total of 28 attack aircraft. Each F/A 18 was carrying 4 AGM-154 JSOW glide bombs. That was 72 precision weapons total. They also had 36 HARM anti-radiation missiles for destroying radar systems. At 3:54 in the morning, all the strike aircraft formed up into their attack formation. They set course directly for the Iranian coast. It was 80 kilometers to their targets. At 3:55 in the morning, the EA-18G Growler aircraft activated their full electronic warfare suite at maximum power. Every single Iranian radar installation within 200 kilometers was immediately jammed with overwhelming electronic noise. Iranian air defense systems were completely blinded. Surface-to-air missiles were unable to lock onto any targets. The Iranian air defenses were rendered completely and totally useless before the American strike aircraft even arrived at their targets. At 3:56 in the morning, the first target was engaged. Keshem Island Naval Base, where 3 of the Iranian speedboats had launched from. 6F/A. 18 fighters fired 12 HARM anti-radiation missiles at the radar installations protecting the base. These missiles home in on radar emissions and destroy the source. At 3:56 and 30 seconds, all 6 Iranian radar stations at Qeshm Island were destroyed. The radar dishes were shattered into pieces. The control buildings collapsed from direct hits. At 3:57 in the morning, those same 6F/A 18 fighters dropped 24 JSOW glide bombs directly on Qeshm Island base. The speedboat production facility was completely destroyed. 8 boats that were under construction were obliterated in the hangar. The ammunition bunker storing C-704 anti-ship missiles took direct hits. Massive explosions. Secondary detonations. The entire ammunition storage complex was destroyed in a massive fireball. The naval barracks where Iranian sailors were sleeping collapsed from bomb impacts. An estimated 40 Iranian sailors were killed in their bunks. The command post that had been coordinating the entire attack took a direct hit. The building was completely flattened. All communications equipment was eliminated. Qeshm Island base was completely destroyed. Its operational capability was totally eliminated. At 3:59 in the morning, the second target was engaged. Bandar Abbas Naval Station, the primary headquarters for Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy operations. 6F/A, 18 fighters plus 4F, 35C stealth fighters engaged this target. They delivered 28 precision weapons onto the base. The speedboat docks where 4 of the attack boats had launched from were destroyed. The piers collapsed into the water. The dry docks were demolished. The headquarters building took 8 JSOW bombs. The 5-story building collapsed completely. The entire regional command structure was eliminated. The radar tower that had been providing targeting data was destroyed by a HARM missile. The tower collapsed. Iranian surveillance capability in the area was gone. The fuel storage depot was hit with 6 precision bombs. A massive fireball erupted. An estimated 500,000 liters of diesel fuel began burning. Black smoke was visible for 50 kilometers. The weapons storage facility took multiple hits. Chain reaction explosions began. Missiles, torpedoes, and rockets all started detonating. The entire weapon stockpile was destroyed in a series of massive explosions. Bandar Abbas Naval Station was approximately 60% destroyed. It would take literally years to rebuild the previous capability. At 4:02 in the morning, the third target was struck. Larak Island speedboat position. 4F/A. 18 fighters struck the small island base with 16 JSOW precision bombs. 3 speedboat shelters were destroyed. The boats inside were obliterated. A small command bunker was collapsed by direct hit. The island garrison was eliminated. An observation post overlooking the strait was destroyed. Iran could no longer monitor ship traffic in the area. Larak Island was no longer capable of conducting any naval operations. At 4:04 in the morning, the fourth target was engaged. Hormuz Island base at the entrance to the strait. 4F/A. 18 fighters delivered 16 precision bombs onto the small base. The speedboat maintenance facility was completely destroyed. All repair capability was eliminated. The torpedo storage bunker took a direct hit, causing a massive underwater explosion. The entire torpedo inventory detonated. The communication station was flattened. Iran could no longer coordinate with other bases in the region. A small harbor facility had its piers demolished. 2 additional Iranian speedboats that were tied up at the dock were destroyed. Hormuz Island's entire military infrastructure was eliminated. At 4:06 in the morning, American aircraft began hitting secondary targets all along the Iranian coast. Iranian coastal defense installations that supported naval operations.